I have an entire video dedicated to how there is this change in sort of the ability to move between being a barbarian. Sometimes the Romans consider it being half beast, by the way. I mean, the Romans were, it depends. Not everyone thought that way, but I'm saying sometimes it's mentioned. But this is probably the main difference between the perspective of a Roman, where they say, well, we are civilized, and the Greeks, I don't know why I didn't mention that, everyone else is an outsider, everyone else is below us. That's how the Romans think. This is why I often like to state the Romans weren't racists, they hated everyone equally. With that being said, I think the difference the professor is trying to convey is the fact that there was the ability to change. So you are a barbarian, and according to some Romans, you're a half beast, but if you are civilized and you accept Roman culture, learn Latin, be a member, a productive member of Roman society, pay your taxes, maybe serve as an auxiliary, whatever it is, then you may one day become a citizen. And once you become a citizen, then you're not a barbarian anymore. So that can change. Of course, from a modern racist perspective, you can't change that. That's immutable. It's not movable. Given, it's also important to take into consideration that as we read the annals and as we read the testimonies, you could also lose it. You could become a Roman citizen, but then if you rebel, you're back to beast status from the perspective of the Romans. You're like an animal. You can gain it, you can change it. Which is why I'm not sure I would use the term inclusive when it comes to this, because it becomes a bit too positive in a context where, well, yeah, if you pay your taxes and don't cause trouble and you accept our superior culture, then yeah, you're included in among us. Comparatively to other people of the period, yeah, they were very open-minded. With that being said, if you don't do as we say, you're a beast, and you will be dealt with if you dare to rebel. Not sure that's exactly inclusive in the modern sense of the term. Just keeping it real.
Well, what's this extra bit of wall here? Is this a later addition? Why have they walled up some of this gateway to the north?
Yeah, so this big fantastic gateway gets narrowed to a simple postern. You know, just one person portal.
Just here, yeah.
And that becomes a control point, really.
Yeah.
Is that because they're scared about sort of giant forces crashing through here?
It could be.
This is such a strange way to put it, because they were scared. They were being professionals. That's what the military does. Do you think the American Marine Corps is going to not care about defensive capabilities of a fort and making sure that you're well organized and tactically optimized in all situations? Do you think they do that because they're scared? I mean, it's a weird way to put it, Mr. Snow. They're being professional. That's all they're doing.
But if you also consider that by blocking this gate, making it so just a single person could come through, you're really reducing the usefulness of this gate. That forces anyone with wagons of goods, large herds of cattle, flocks of sheep, to go to those forts and go through the gates at the forts, where there's lots of soldiers.
Yeah. How did people come and go? Is there a system of passes or passports, paperwork?
We know from other frontiers, Egypt especially, where they have straka, bits of pottery with messages painted on them, that this would act as a pass. So there is a paperwork, a pass that an officer would sign that would allow you access in and out of the Roman Empire.
Fascinating.
Just like modern borders.
Yeah.
There could have been quite the administration up here.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And also potentially, a bit of corruption as well. Because actually, there's no major general that's sitting here. So this might be a lucrative position for a very lowly soldier if they want to make a little bit of extra cash.
Absolutely. Corruption has always been a main problem. And in fact, it is one of the main reasons as to why the ancient Roman Empire collapsed. As I mentioned on my dedicated videos, corruption is one of the main problems, and it will only get worse as you go later and later into imperial dominate.
Life for those soldiers manning the lonely milecastles must have sometimes felt quite remote from the protection of the larger garrisons. This reconstruction of Milecastle 48 shows how tightly packed and hunkered down these little forts were.
Yeah.
So even though this is a solid feeling structure, it's still quite small. And I can imagine on certain nights here or mist days it feel quite isolated. But are there accounts of people from the north coming and attacking the garrisons here, slaughtering them, raids, full invasions?
We don't have many historical accounts of battle. We have a nice account from Cassius Dio when the Caledones crossed the wall. And so we know there's the odd invasion, but this could be something which is a daily occurrence, a small skirmish as a Roman patrol party and raiders meet, or it might be something that's very rare. And of course, that can change over time.
Yeah, I would say seldom. I don't think it would be daily unless you're like really in a moment of a full-on invasion. I wouldn't say daily would be the norm. Seldomly happens, but probably a lot of the time nothing was really happening.
Remember the East Gate at Bird Oswald?
In fact, it could be the exceptionality of such events that have them recorded for us historically. If this was something that happened every single day, they wouldn't even bother recording it as, oh wow, this happened today.
This is how it would have looked in its prime.
Yeah, good.
I've headed east to the remarkable reconstruction of a gateway on the wall, built by the mouth of the River Tyne at South Shields. This is a huge Roman base at Arbea. It gives a clear image of just how imposing Rome's frontier was.
Yeah.
But I've come here to see something rather less monumental. Tucked away in Arbea's museum are two remarkable tombstones that reveal deeply personal stories about the people who travelled from across the empire to live and work around Hadrian's Wall. To help me decode the details is curator Alex Kroom.
Okay, well, this is it's really interesting, but it's also very long. So I'm going to divide it into episodes because so far